Economic reform refers to deliberate changes in a country's economic policies, institutions, and structures, with the primary goals of improving efficiency, fostering economic growth, enhancing productivity, and increasing overall economic well-being. These reforms often involve a shift away from established practices and may include deregulation, liberalization of markets, privatization of state-owned enterprises, fiscal adjustments, trade policy changes, and strengthening of financial systems. The underlying aim is usually to create a more dynamic, competitive, and resilient economy that can better respond to domestic and global challenges and opportunities. Why did India need economic reforms in 1991? Discuss in detail. By 1991, India was facing a severe economic crisis, stemming from decades of inward-looking policies and a large role for the state in the economy. Several interconnected factors contributed to this situation, making comprehensive economic reforms an urgent necessity. 1. Balance of payments crisis. This was the most immediate trigger. India's import expenditure consistently exceeded its export earnings, leading to a widening current account deficit. By 1991, the country's foreign exchange reserves had plummeted to critically low levels, barely enough to cover a few weeks' worth of imports. This raised serious concerns about India's ability to meet its international payment obligations and maintain essential imports like oil and fertilizers. 2. High fiscal deficit. The government's expenditure significantly outstripped its revenue, resulting in a large and unsustainable fiscal deficit. This was financed through borrowing, leading to a mounting public debt burden and high interest payments, further straining the government's finances. Excessive government spending often went towards inefficient public sector undertakings, PSUs, and large subsidies. 3. High inflation. Persistent fiscal deficits and expansionary monetary policies fueled high rates of inflation. This eroded the purchasing power of ordinary citizens, created economic instability, and hampered investment. 4. Poor performance of public sector undertakings, PSUs. Many PSUs, established with the aim of driving industrialization and social welfare, had become inefficient, loss-making entities. They were often overstaffed, lacked accountability, and suffered from political interference. These entities were a significant drain on the government's resources. 5. Industrial licensing and the License Raj. A complex system of industrial licensing and permits, often referred to as the License Raj, stifled private enterprise, innovation, and competition. Businesses needed numerous approvals from various government agencies to start, expand, or diversify their operations. This led to delays, corruption, rent-seeking, and discouraged investment. 6. Trade restrictions and inward-looking policies. India followed a protectionist trade policy with high tariffs and quantitative restrictions on imports. This shielded domestic industries from foreign competition, leading to a lack of technological upgradation, inefficiency, and poor quality of goods. It also limited India's participation in global trade and investment flows. 7. Stagnant growth and limited job creation. The controlled and inefficient economic environment resulted in relatively slow economic growth and limited job creation, especially in the formal sector. The potential of the Indian economy and its large workforce was not being fully realized. 8. Impact of the Gulf War, 1990-91. The Gulf War further exacerbated the economic crisis by increasing oil prices and disrupting remittances from Indian workers in the Middle East. In response to this precarious situation, the government led by Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao, with Dr. Manmohan Singh as the finance minister, initiated a series of bold and comprehensive economic reforms in 1991. These reforms aim to stabilize the economy, address the immediate balance of payments crisis, and control inflation. This involved measures like the devaluation of the Indian rupee, seeking loans from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, and implementing fiscal discipline. Liberalize the economy, reduce government control, and increase the role of the private sector. This included dismantling the industrial licensing system, easing restrictions on foreign investment, and reforming capital markets. Globalize the economy. Integrate India more closely with the global economy by reducing trade barriers, promoting exports, and encouraging foreign direct investment. Improve efficiency and productivity. Foster competition, encourage technological upgradation, and improve the performance of the public sector through measures like privatization and disinvestment. Achieve sustainable and higher economic growth. Create an environment conducive to investment, innovation, and entrepreneurship to accelerate economic growth and improve living standards. The reforms of 1991 marked a significant shift in India's economic trajectory, moving it away from a state-controlled, inward-looking model towards a more market-oriented and globally integrated economy. What's obligatory reform? Obligatory reforms typically refer to economic reforms that a country is required to undertake as a condition for receiving financial assistance or other forms of support from international financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. These conditions are often attached to structural adjustment programs or bailout packages designed to address severe economic crises, such as balance of payments problems or unsustainable debt levels. These obligatory reforms are usually aimed at macroeconomic stabilization, measures to control inflation, reduce fiscal deficits, and manage debt, structural adjustments, policy changes intended to improve the efficiency and competitiveness of the economy, such as privatization, deregulation, trade liberalization, and financial sector reforms. The implementation of obligatory reforms can be politically sensitive, as they may involve significant changes to existing policies and can have short-term social and economic costs. However, the rationale behind them is often to address fundamental imbalances and create a more sustainable economic foundation for the borrowing country. The economic reforms initiated by India in 1991 had elements of obligatory reforms, particularly those related to securing financial assistance from the IMF to overcome the balance of payments crisis. The IMF's lending was conditional on India undertaking certain policy changes aimed at stabilizing the economy and initiating structural reforms.